A savvy author will be looking at the bad reviews, the middle of the road reviews, and the good reviews of authors that are best-selling in their genre, authors that are not best-selling in their genre. And it will give you a lot of clues as to why that book was successful.
Hello, fellow creative voyagers. This week on the Indy Author podcast, I talk with Rossana Corniel about unlocking the power of book reviews, including the importance of reviews in understanding reader expectations and forming effective marketing strategies. Rossana discusses the finding that research shows that reviews can significantly impact sales and reader trust, the importance of tailoring your book's cover and description to your target audience, and the emotional challenge of dealing with low-star reviews. The conversation also touches upon practical strategies for gathering reviews, such as using platforms like BookSprout. So now let's hear from Rossana about unlocking the power of book reviews. Hello and welcome to the Indy Author podcast. Today my guest is Rossana Corniel. Hey, Rossana, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great as well. And to give our listeners and viewers a little bit of background on you, Rossana Corniel is a romantasy and paranormal romance author who believes in the magic of storytelling to inspire and connect. Writing under the pen name R.C. Luna, she's published 6 novels and a children's book with 6 more books slated for release in 2025. Drawing on her almost 2 decades of experience in marketing and communications, including her current role as head of marketing at BookSprout, Rossana blends creativity and strategy to help authors grow and thrive. And when she's not writing, she's raising 3 incredible daughters and chasing the next great adventure. And I got to meet Rossana at Author Nation 2024. We had lots of fun conversations there. And I invited her on the podcast to talk about marketing strategies for authors with a focus on reviews. And then at the end of our conversation, we're going to hear a little bit more specifically about BookSprout, but Rossana's going to be sharing lots of information that's going to be valuable even if you are not using BookSprout. And what I'd like to do is start out talking about the role of reviews in terms of understanding reader expectations and what role that plays in having an effective marketing strategy.
Oh, that's a powerful point. And I think that one of the things we do as authors, especially just starting out and even midway through publishing about 3 books, you kind of realize, wow, reviews are important. They make an impact on everything I'm doing. And I maybe should have paid a little more attention to them at the very beginning. And we realize that after we've gotten a few low-star reviews or after there's some lag in reviews, because there's not a whole lot of review naturally that comes so organically as we would like. So, and this is because reviews are important. I mean, we've got a lot of research that shows that. Nielsen says that over 90% of people report that a review is equivalent to a personal recommendation. You've got other data from Harvard studies that show if there's an increase by 1 star in your review, meaning a higher positive review, you're going to experience an increase in your sales. And this is just any product. This isn't books specifically. This is any product is paying attention to reviews. So you're seeing a lot of action from anything sold online to increase visibility and to build trust and confidence from the users. People give away free products in exchange for an honest review. And it just happens. So this is something you want to tap into as an author as well, because it's not just all those factors I just told you, but double that up. You've got to double that up with the fact that readers want to know how to invest their time. Books are a bigger time commitment. So books are different than just the traditional product. It kind of doubles down when you think about my identity as a reader. I identify with the books that I read. I identify with the characters. It's part of my lifestyle. When I say I write romantasy, it's because it's who I am and how I exist in this world. So readers also really attach to that aspect of it. And it makes reviews that much more important because they're finding their community within your reviews. And they're saying, is this something that I can identify with as a human being? And on top of that, you've got another important factor is that a lot of book awards and a lot of promotional sites will require a minimum level of amount of reviews in order for you to apply for that promotion. So you've got a completely practical reason that has nothing to do with all the social proof and research and studies I've given you. And then there's the other aspect of marketing strategies that are entirely designed around the reviews given. If you look on BookBub and you see half of their posts of the ads on that huge platform for self-published authors are using reviews within their ads. So it's an extremely powerful source of marketing.
Yeah, I realize that reviews are almost my primary. I look at the cover, I look at the title, and then I see who's recommending it. And I never do the look inside. I'm always surprised at people who are surprised when they learn that I don't ever look inside the book. I mean, if I'm making a bigger investment, like buying a hardcover or something like that, I
Yeah,
probably would, but not always. And often, especially if it's a lower priced ebook, I'm just saying, oh, well, if so-and-so liked it, then this is
absolutely.
something that I'm going to give a try to.
Absolutely.
So I had questions. If an author is just starting out, they don't have any books out yet themselves that are gaining reviews. Is there value to be had in terms of understanding a marketing strategy, in terms of looking at the reviews of other books that are similar to yours?
Oh, that's a very savvy author that does that. A savvy author will be looking at the bad reviews, the middle of the road reviews, and the good reviews of authors that are best-selling in their genre, authors that are not best-selling in their genre. And it will give you a lot of clues as to why that book was successful and what it is there's keywords. I mean, readers are so useful. They leave keywords in there that you can just take and put into your Amazon, your keyword locator thing in any platform that you're publishing on. And they're putting them right there in the reviews. And if you see them over and over, you're like, oh, that's a big keyword in my genre. And you've seen it in that same keyword in 3 different reviews on 3 different books of 3 different authors that are doing well. Well, there you go. You've just found a very powerful keyword. And it's a savvy author that will do that.
And then once an author has a book out there, let's say they've put out their first book and the reviews are starting to come in. I guess one thing is to think about to what extent people, there are some authors that say, I just don't read my reviews at all, which I think is dangerous. But
Yeah.
Can you give some tips for authors who are willing to read their reviews? Like, how should they be approaching them so the experience is informative and not traumatic?
Yes. Do some therapy first. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, it was hard for me. As you mentioned, I've written quite a few books by now, and I'm still writing, and I'm still in this career, and I'm still pushing my books and growing as an author. And it is hard to get that low star review and to hear somebody give you critical feedback. There are some that I've read the reviews of the lower feedback or the lower stars, and I was like, wow, you are so on point. I better put a trigger warning because you weren't my reader. You weren't my reader, and you think that vampires exist in the real world. So you're questioning the military. Why would the military have vampires? Well, because it's a work of fiction. And obviously I triggered you in even including the military in my storyline. And it's just a matter of knowing that was a trigger for that individual. Not that I did anything wrong as a writer, but I could be more savvy and put a trigger warning at the beginning, which is what I did. I added a very lengthy trigger warning. And I said, any institutions that you see that might seem similar in this book world are not real. This is pure fiction on every level of the storyline. And you just have to understand there's an alternate reality. And then I had never gotten another review like that again. And it's been great. So like things like that you can avoid.
Yeah, I did something similar to that. I've never found the need to give warnings or caveats for my novel length works. But my short stories are different because sometimes they're a little experimental. A good example is that I wrote a short story for my Ann Kinnear series, or with my Ann Kinnear series characters, that was specifically for an anthology that encouraged profanity. And so profanity is not something that my novels normally feature. And so I put right at the top of the description, this story was written specifically for an anthology that encouraged profanity. You have been forewarned. And I've never gotten a complaint about that in a review. I mean, I've never gotten a complaint about the inclusion of profanity in a review. And if somebody did complain about it, then I think browsers would see that I had put this big note at the top, and they would kind of discount that review because they would realize that the person was misinterpreting who I was marketing to. And the other one I've done is I have an Easter story that I explicitly label as not your choice if you're looking for Christian lit. And so, yeah, I think that also avoids luring people into a series that isn't going to be right for them, which is one of the things that leads to those low star reviews.
And that's where we tie into knowing your readers, how important it is to understand who is your ideal reader. And I would love for you to buy my book if you're not my ideal reader, but then you're going to have a bad experience if these are things you're not looking for and you don't want to be triggered. Like if you talk about loss in your book and somebody just recently had a loss. And I've read these reviews because I've read a lot of reviews, and they're like, one of them said, I just recently lost somebody in my life, and have to have read this book and read about this loss was devastating and hurtful, 1 star. And it's like, wow, this is my story. And I was hurt too about the loss I wrote about. So it's hard because the readers, you don't really know what they're going through and what they need to hear. So I wrote my trigger warning is a piece of like powerful content that I wrote. I try to write it beautifully, compassionately, considerate of the others, and saying, know yourself, take care of yourself, be cautious if physical, emotional violence bothers you, then be sure to be careful about that when you're going into my books. And I tried to write it in a way that I thought would also go with the theme of the whole storyline. So it's not just a ugly stamp on the front of the book, but it's actually just, here's a taste of me as an author speaking directly to you, my reader.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that another important thing for authors to keep in mind is that you shouldn't pay attention to every review and trust that the readers you want to reach are not going to be swayed by silly reviews. So, like, I would say that if somebody's reading a book about vampires and they're concerned because it's not realistic enough, to me, that's a silly review. And the people who love vampire works are going to recognize that's a silly review. And so I think that especially early in a career, it's easy to read something like that, this didn't seem realistic enough to me, and think, oh, like now what I have to do is go jump on making my world more realistic, even though it's populated by vampires. And one piece of advice I like to share is don't jump on an individual review, look for trends. And so most of your target readers are going to understand that this is a fictional world. But if you start seeing a trend that's related to the world seemed disconnected from the vampire concept or whatever it is, then those are the kinds of things you want to factor in for future works.
Oh, absolutely. I love that you brought it up that way because, it's about like typos. If you've got several people posting in your reviews that you've gotten multiple typos and it's not just one person, there's several, then maybe you missed something and you got to go back and look at it. And plot holes, if they talk about character development, these characters were so woefully undeveloped and you've checked, and there's several people saying that maybe there's something off about your story that requires a little bit of critical feedback and looking, and take a critical eye after you've gotten over the emotional hurt of seeing that. Go back and take a critical eye to your work if you want to continue to improve as an author.
Yeah. The one exception I would say where I acted on one individual review is somebody left what was generally a very positive review. And then at the end, he said, one plot thing I was confused about is at the very end of the story, one of the characters is in Maine. Another character drives up to Maine to meet up with him. And then like 3 chapters later, there's a reference to them renting a car. And the reader said, I don't understand why they rented a car when they already had a car there. And I was like, Beth, you're right. I don't know why they did either. And so as an indie author, I could go back and just remove the sentence referring to them renting a car.
Yes.
But you can plumb reviews not only for those sort of strategic things, but also for the details that maybe you and your editor and your beta readers overlooked.
Yeah. I mean, I had so many eyes on my books. I couldn't believe some of the things still got through. And people were like sending me screenshots, my early readers, my early reviewers that were friends or maybe contacts or just kind on the platforms. They'd be like, correct this. And I had a chance to go in. I did all the formatting myself and I could upload it and problem solved.
Yeah, that is nice to have that and not know that there's a warehouse somewhere with 4 billion books printed that refer to a rental car that shouldn't really exist.
Exactly.
So if someone is getting, let's say now they're further along in their career, or maybe they still only have one book, and they're seeing those low star reviews, but maybe they're not seeing the detail. Like sometimes people will post a 1-star review and they'll say why they're doing it. Sometimes you just get 1-star reviews, or 1-star ratings, I should say. People aren't leaving the reviews. If you're getting low ratings, but you're not seeing an explanation within reviews of why that is, what are some steps people can take to diagnose that issue?
Yeah, it does happen. I mean, it's just, I think it goes back to your ideal reader, because if first of all, you've got to check all those boxes, right? You've got it professionally edited, which I insist on as an author to just make that investment and go in and do that because you're not perfect. Like it's really hard to get it exact. And then have a beta reader, several. And then you've done a few rounds of that. Then you got to make sure that your cover was right and you've targeted, and then you've got the trigger warnings included. And then you've got to make sure that you're speaking to your ideal reader. All of those things, if you've checked all of those boxes, you shouldn't be getting all of those low star reviews, because once they're in the hands of the people that like that genre, and that's one thing about the targeting your ideal readers. there is maybe you love your book cover because you created it on Canva and you've been an artist and you know art and you know how amazing it looks and everybody else can appreciate that it should be worth $1 billion as an NFT. But it's not talking to your genre and it's not aligned with what people in your genre like, then the wrong people are picking up your book and the wrong people are reading it. And it's so important that your book description, you've got that really covered, and you've got, aliens, falling in love with humans in your book, and you want to target that. There's a lot of money in that particular niche of romance. But if your cover doesn't speak to that at all, and you've got like this broad audience coming into you, they're not going to be happy, and they might just be clicking that one star. This was weird. This isn't what I expected. So I really think it can all be always attributed back to really getting to know your readers and knowing what they want from you.
Yeah, I like that idea of the importance of not only visual design expertise, but specifically book design expertise, because if you look at the pool of writers, the pool within that of people who have visual design expertise is pretty small. But then even within that pool, there are just some things that are very specific to book cover design, and what can be a beautiful picture on a wall is not necessarily an effective book cover for all the reasons you're saying about genre appropriateness, but even things like, is this going to even be visible in a thumbnail? I've seen lots of book covers that I see in person in print, and the cover is gorgeous, but if it's tiny and electronic, then you lose all the things that are beautiful about it, and you're having people skim past it because they just don't see it.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot to that. And you got to spend some time thinking and applying that process, and then share it. There's Facebook groups, there's social media groups. You can share your cover with closed communities, not public in the world, but say, hey, does this align with whatever genre? Like, go to the Facebook thriller writers, author group, and post it there and be like, hey guys, and then help someone else out too. If they have a question that you can help with, be active. And then you'll get support from your community, because a lot of times if you're working in a silo and you think you're all alone with it, you might not get the feedback you need, or you might not even know what direction to go.
Yeah, I really like that idea of aligning yourself with the community that you want to reach, because then you have the expert and often free market research right there at your fingertips.
Yes, tons of it.
So I think we've probably convinced people about both the value of having reviews and the things you can gain from reviews. But I think a challenge that many authors, especially indie authors, are facing is, how do I get the reviews? And I struggled with this for a long time. For example, I was really on the fence about doing newsletter swaps, promoting other authors' works in order to get reviews, because I felt uncomfortable recommending books that I myself hadn't read. And then in talking with people, I realized that as long as you're not pretending you read a book that you didn't really read, recipients actually like that, especially if you're offering them a book for free or something like that. So I started diving into that a little bit more. But some of these free options for getting reviews are not always so effective. But there's also this feeling like, well, I can't pay for reviews. So can you talk a little bit about the distinction between the prohibited paying for a review and the encouraged approach of using a service like BookSprout that you're paying the service, and how those things are different?
Yeah. So when you use a service like BookSprout, you're paying us to use our platform. You're not paying us for reviews. So if you put your book on our platform and it has a bad cover and it doesn't have a good book description, you probably won't get any reviews. It's just, I can't promise that. BookSprout will never promise that. And it's just not something we can even legally do, because you cannot incentivize a review. You can only give them a free version of your product, in your case, your book, in exchange for an honest review on the platform. And so what we do is we just facilitate the process of upload your book here. We'll make sure we put it in front of our 85,000 plus readers. They'll claim it and download it. We'll make sure they get it in the right format, that they can read it on their phone through our app, so it's easily accessible to them. And then we'll make it so that they're reminded when to leave the review. And then you have all the links where all the reviews should be left will be on our platform, so they could easily leave the review directly on the platform, and you have one less thing to worry about. And that's the difference between paying somebody for an actual review, saying, here's $20, leave me a review, versus what we find is the most ethical way to go about it.
Yeah. And I think that what people need to remember is the more ethical it is, the more likely it is that you're going to get a bad review. In the sense that I always use the example of Kirkus Reviews. So Kirkus Reviews is a very well-respected trade reviewer, and it's very expensive to get a Kirkus review, but it's valuable because Kirkus has a reputation for not just handing out positive reviews willy-nilly. And so the risk you're running there is that you pay the hundreds and hundreds of dollars that Kirkus charges to write a review, and you get a bad one. The only thing you can do is ask Kirkus not to publish it. If you find a platform that's promising nothing but good reviews, then it's not a reputable platform, because no service like BookSprout or the less reputable versions of it should be making that kind of guarantee. You don't want to be shopping around for the platform that guarantees good reviews, because it's not going to lead you to the benefits that I think we're recommending that getting reviews has.
Yeah, exactly.
I think another thing that authors need to get over, and this is definitely something that I experienced, I did myself earlier in my career, is the resistance to giving away my book. So when my first book was out, I didn't want to be someone who's just like willy-nilly handing my book out to people because it seemed sort of desperate. But I think that the more experienced I became, the more books I had, the more comfortable I was giving away the book, because I recognized that if it's not like early on when you give one book to a friend and now this is a friend who isn't going to buy it. The giving away of books is a prerequisite to reaching a larger readership, because the idea, of course, is that you give the book away via opportunities we've discussed, BookSprout or newsletter swaps or whatever they may be. And the goal is that you get 2 or 3 or 10 or 100 readers as a result of that giveaway. Can you talk a little bit more about, like, do you encounter that resistance from readers to giving their work away, and how do you address it with them?
I think when I was more active with author communities that weren't aware of this process so much, I heard more about it. I remember hearing about that resistance and protecting their work, and wow, I work so hard. How can I give this away for free? But it's not for free. You're getting a review. And that's why I always preface it with, do you realize how important reviews are? I think it's a matter of shifting the mindset and saying, I am giving it away in order to get my marketing strategy complete. And I understand the full picture of my marketing plan. I understand how this fits into every layer. And I understand that this is a critical part of me being successful and having longevity with this particular book.
Yeah, I think that one of the reasons that I value BookSprout, and I'm a happy BookSprout user, is that idea of having a way to get books into the hands of knowledgeable readers who are clearly there because they like writing reviews and are good at it and understand genre expectations and kind of understand how the whole thing works, and then gaining those insights and getting the benefits of having that review on the different sites. And the other thing that I really like about it is that earlier you had said about the fact that a lot of promotions require you to have a certain number of reviews. And I always meet that requirement on Amazon. But for example, Apple will have all these attractive promotional opportunities, but I don't have enough reviews on Apple to be able to qualify for them. And so a service like BookSprout is great because you have people writing reviews on a variety of platforms. Amazon and Goodreads and BookBub and Apple and Google Play and so on. So that's been a really great benefit to get an easier entree into those other platforms.
Yeah, that's what's cool. And we have audiobooks, and we're expanding all the time how many more audio platforms you can leave a book review on. So you've got different formats that you can leave, you can use this for. So maybe you're covered in Amazon and you just need Apple. Well, then use us for just Apple if that's what you need. So it's really being savvy about what it is, looking at your business as a business and every aspect, and taking that emotional piece out, because that's back to emotion, right? That's not practical. It's like giving it away for free, but you're not. So that's a story in your mind. And then it's the low star reviews are a stab at me personally. No, it's not. It's just part of the process of opening up yourself to criticism. So it's this like emotional piece as an author that we always have to like put a little harder shell on that way of thinking.
Yeah. And another thing that I want to talk about in terms of reviews that BookSprout handles is the idea of, are you looking for reviews over time, or are you looking for like a crunch of reviews around a book launch? So I'm always in it for the long haul. I'm not a big launchy kind of person. And so I got the plan where I can always have my books up and they're always available there for people to review. but then I know there are plans that are more targeted at certain time periods. Do you have advice, independent of BookSprout, if people are looking for reviews, how they should handle the chronological aspect of it? Do they want a crunch or do they want it over time?
Yeah. There is a lot of research. There's a lot that I have uncovered that says that if you time your launch specifically and you've got your launch going and then you're collecting reviews, and so you're building sales, you're driving sales to the Amazon platform, and you're getting reviews at the same time, that the algorithm will favor you. And so that will kind of make Amazon push you to the top of their ranking list and give you a little bump and give you that little banner and give it to you a little longer because they're seeing all these things on the algorithm, right? So it really just depends on your strategy as an author. And then, if you know that, then you're going to kind of say, oh, I should ramp up for launch and I should do all this, have my book ready, have it edited, have the cover right, have the description right, all that, boom, done. Give my readers 3 weeks to do my launch team. And then I launch it 3 weeks out from that. And then I ask you for reviews on that day if you're doing a launch. If you've got, we do allow, you don't have to have a new launch to have any of our plans. You can say today, I launched a book a year ago. I want to get some reviews on it. You can put it up on our platform. So that helps a lot of people too. And that helped me because I had already launched my books. I'd already collecting my launch team reviews and I wanted to get more. Like I was like, I want to get over that 50 review threshold and I want the read through. I want people to read through all the way to the last book in the series and try to review all of those. And then I'm launching a box set of the same series that I launched a year ago. I want reviews on that. So all of them went through the BookSprout platform and got the reviews.
I can imagine a benefit of when I'm reading a series. If I read the first book in the series and love it, then I'll leave a review. When I read the second book in the series, and I'm putting aside my author hat for a moment, I probably still love it for many of the same reasons I love the first one. I love the characters, or I love the setting, or I love the descriptive way that the author describes the world they've built. But it often doesn't occur to me to leave a review for the second one because I'm like, oh, I've already said that. So please don't do that, because don't be like me. And I need to regroup there, because it is sad when you have a bunch of reviews on the first book and you see read through in the sale. So you know other people are reading through the series, but then the subsequent books never get the same love as the first book. So that's more a recommendation that if you're a reader, even if you're saying more or less the same thing from book to book, go ahead and say it because you're helping out an author that you're enjoying.
Yeah. And that's the great part of going out and actively getting reviews too. Like you're asking for reviews on book 2. I'm asking for reviews on book 3. I'm asking for because we do have the science also that shows us that 5% of organic readers will leave a review. So that's like 1 in 20. 1 in 20 will read on their own, will leave a review. So with that kind of a low number, and I barely got 1 in 20, honestly. Like I've sold thousands of copies. I didn't get 1 in 20. I don't know who's getting 1 in 20, but that's what the data showed. So that's the data I quote, but that's not what I got. So I need to go out there and say, people, help me out here. Leave me a review if you like the book.
Yeah. So the last thing I wanted to talk about, I had originally thought we would have this conversation offline afterwards because it's sort of, it could be BookSprout specific, but now I'm realizing maybe it wouldn't be. And it's the idea of building long-term engagement. So the question I was going to ask you about BookSprout, but hopefully this is generalizable, is, I created my account, I uploaded all my books, I made them available, provided all the metadata. And then I thought, well, should I be doing more? Like, is there some kind of outreach I should be doing? And if someone is using a service like BookSprout, are there best practices they should be following to make sure that they're taking the full advantage of that kind of service and using it to build a long-term relationship? The other thing I do is when someone leaves a review, fortunately, I've only gotten 4 and 5 star reviews, but either way, like if someone send a 1-star review, maybe I wouldn't respond. But I always go on there. You have the ability to say, oh, thank you for leaving a review on this book. And I always try to do that because I want to build that kind of relationship. Any other recommendations you have for parlaying reviewer relationships into long-term relationships?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I can tell you we get a lot of questions on our help team. And, if you ever use BookSprout and you see the support thing there, send it, like ask us. We are happy to help. We're happy to guide. We're happy to give you advice on how to use our platform. And one of the things that we give probably the most advice on is your keywords. They're like, wow, how come nobody found my book? And I'm not getting the people signing up. I'm not getting the participants. And we go in and we check their keywords and they've used 2 and they're bad, like, and they're not thought through and they're just kind of slapped in there. And it's like, no, if there's a popular keyword and there's a popular book, dragons, use that in the keyword. Somebody might go in there and search just for books on dragons. They're in a mood to read books on dragons today. Put dragons, like, figure out the same effort you'd take to figure out your keywords for your Amazon or your Apple listing or whatever listing, use that effort and take time to fill that out.
So would you expect that if someone has refined their keywords for a retail platform, can they use those same keywords on a review platform? Or is there a different spin you should be taking?
You should use the same. You should and that's where our platform is very much, you have to think about it. It's very much like wherever you're listing your books. If you're not getting visibility, if your books aren't posting up to the top of the platform and all of that, it's probably because your book cover, we have a feature that shows views and impressions. And we implemented this feature because a lot of people are like, well, why am I not getting a lot of participation? I can't tell you that it's because your book cover doesn't align. I can't tell you that through the platform. I can't go through your help ticket and say, well, you got to fix your book cover, because people get extremely offended. They will go on and on and on about how this book cover was carefully selected. It's meaningful. I checked it with my best friend and they told me it was perfect. So I know my book cover is great. So I can't tell you that, but I can tell you if your views and your impressions are not good on the platform, it may give you the critical thinking to say, oh, people aren't resonating with my book cover. I'm not getting the views and impressions because I'm not landing with the audience with it. They're just skipping right over. They're not spending any time with my book cover. They're just passing it through. And I can't tell you these things because it's a lot of emotion. Again, it's a lot of emotion that goes into these decisions, and we can't get into that back and forth with every customer. So these are ways you've got to try to be savvy.
And if someone is assessing the views and impressions, am I right in interpreting that to be like, let's say a reader goes in to the reader side of BookSprout and searches for dragons, and they get the returns that have dragon in the keyword. And so that would count as an impression. But if then they click into it, it's a view. So if there's a big discrepancy, I guess one red flag could be if there's a discrepancy between your book was presented as an impression to 100 people, but only 2 people clicked on it and viewed it. That could be because the cover, like your keyword led them to it, but then the cover did not pull them in. Is that a correct interpretation?
Yes. Beautiful interpretation. And then if you click on it, it's like you've got 10 people clicked on it because the cover's on point, but they read the description and they didn't claim it. Then you know that it's because there's something off about your description that's not landing with your ideal reader. Again. And also,
so you got 10 views, but then you only got 1 review out of that or something like that. That would be the data you would look for that, right?
Yeah. Yes. You have to self-diagnose. And as a self-published author, this is the work.
Yeah. And I think that, well, I'll ask you whether this is something you would recommend. One of the benefits of a platform like BookSprout is that you do have this ability to communicate with reviewers. Now, I just say thank you. I don't ask any questions. But if someone had said, well, I gave this 2 stars because it just didn't hold my attention, do you think it's appropriate for an author to say, like, can you let me know at what point it lost your attention? Or to what extent is it appropriate to graciously and professionally ask a reviewer for more information about the review?
Yeah, I think at any point, and you can do that, and you'll be surprised at how willing they are to be helpful. And they know, like, a lot of our readers know that you're on a journey here and you're trying to get better. And a lot of them know that they're good readers and they leave good reviews, and they're confident in that. So they'll say, I got a lot of reviews kindly, like, nudging ideas or giving me feedback that I loved hearing it because all I want to do is grow. And I think, I'm an open-minded person and I enjoy interacting with them. If you ever feel uncomfortable, I would give a couple pieces of advice to that. If you don't like the feedback, graciously ignore it. If you like the feedback, say thank you. If they are aggressive in their tone, demeaning, or otherwise offensive to you, report them. That's how I would recommend to manage anybody, because this banter back and forth, or any kind of like, well, I don't agree, and I did this because of this, and you don't understand my story, and that's, your fault. Well, where does that get you? That's like a big waste of time. Like, just move on. And that's what we find. We do find some petty conversations going on between authors to readers and readers to authors. And it's just these like drama messes that they unfold amongst themselves for continuing in that banter.
Yeah, I have always heard the advice from authors at every level that you should not engage, especially on retail platforms. You should not engage with people who have left reviews. That's not going to be mediated in the same way that a service like BookSprout could mediate that interchange. So it's using a service like that to find the readers who are probably going to like your books is kind of a safety net too.
And before you get it into Goodreads, and before you get it out there in the public where they can just take it and run with it, you've got some preliminary feedback. And I think that's very helpful too, because you can do that. You can say, okay, I'm going to unpublish my book for a hot minute while I just make a few edits. And then it's going to go back up with these trigger warnings. And then that saved me a lot of headaches. My trigger warnings changed everything.
Well, Rossana, thank you so much. Always interesting to talk about reviews because it's such a foundational, but also sometimes emotional aspect of being an author. So thank you for sharing your insights, and please let everyone know where they can go to find out more about you and everything you do online.
Yeah, so you can go to booksprout.co to find our platform. I believe you might have a special link if you do on your platform, yeah?
I do. I'm an affiliate, so I will include a link to my affiliate account on BookSprout because I can highly recommend it.
Well, I love that you're an affiliate because now I can tell them that they get a free month through your link.
Oh, perfect.
So that's awesome news for them. So they sign up, and that's only available with a partner like you. So I really encourage you. And you can, if your book is not ready today for you to get reviews, but you don't want to forget, you can just sign up. You don't have to pay anything. And the moment you decide to start your plan, because your book is ready and you've checked all the boxes, the free month will kick in then. So I do suggest that if you've heard this podcast and you're just now figuring it out, but your book isn't ready, go ahead and take that step. I also encourage you to, when you go to our landing page, go to our blog, because our blog will give you lots of tips. It'll go into all of this into very much more detail in every aspect. We've got interviews from best-selling authors that have used our platform. We have key tips. We have advanced level usage. So I could go on and on about the different techniques and tricks to using BookSprout in a more effective way. And we have articles on that. So I do suggest you spend just a little time looking around.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you for having me. This has been a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Rossana. What strategies have you found most effective for getting book reviews? I would love to hear about it. Just leave a comment on YouTube. As Rossana and I mentioned, I am an affiliate for BookSprout, and so if you'd like to investigate their services via my affiliate link, you will find that at theindyauthor.com/affiliates. And if you got value from this podcast and were thinking, I wish I could buy Matty a cup of coffee, you can do that. Scroll to the bottom of any page at theindyauthor.com and click Buy Me a Coffee. Until next time, here's wishing you favorable winds and smooth sailing on your creative voyage.